All right. We appreciate y'all coming back to the Woodsman Perspective podcast. Me and Chris are in we'll call this the Crim floor.
Crim layer. The layer.
The Hunter Crim recording studio. But look, it's January, first week of January. Yep. For where we're at, we're just kind of coming out of the rut. There's still a little bit of chasing, a little bit of rutting going on, but most of those target deer
you've already either got them on film and killed them. Or
both your girls have killed good deer.
They have killed. Kate's killed 2.
Good deer, good older deer.
She did.
Yep. That 8 is pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty deer.
That was and then Avery killed an old deer. That's the one we had the dog. We got the dog after. It was pretty deep.
We had a couple of we called on Bart Chancellor a couple times to smoke. I used him on a deer I shot with my bow.
There's no better.
We won't talk about Hunter's.
No,
Hunter.
his little mess up. No, but there's no better guy than to use than Bart.
Bart Chancellor. That dog smoke
top notch.
And I'm sure that there's other dogs, but for smoke to watch a dog like that work is really cool.
And watch him and Bart work.
Yeah, that's right.
Cool.
Yep.
I mean Bart. I'm telling you, it's a cool thing to watch those two work.
Yep.
But getting back, and we're talking about this podcast, but it's defensive feeding.
Yeah, we've been talking defense. Like Chris and I I've been on the phone with him 2 or 3 times the last couple of days, and he's out of breath, and then you've really been running your farm
for 2 days
and running cameras, fresh batteries, fresh cards, and you're feeding.
They are, and
if you prevent defense.
And most times people are at the end of this thing where they like, man, I can't wait. The season's over with. Look, I can start looking forward to crappie fishing, turkey hunting, getting ready. This deer season, it works on you. But for those people that has a superstar, a Michael Jordan, okay, they see him, they have him. How do we keep him alive? Because look, I was having a conversation with Bobby Cole, and Bobby had one that was 7 years old. He knew it was 6, 7 years old, and he knew that deer was moving. He was on his place. Bobby had been feeding him. He knew that deer was on his place at some time. Now it's got a smaller place, but Bobby said it as good as anybody. He said those deer get up during the rut and they walk till somebody shoots them. That's true.
A lot of truth to that.
There's a lot of truth to that. And I can even see, we got 2 10 points at the place that we are off limits. We're trying to save them because our drought has had us the last 2 years regionally. We've been in a pretty good drought.
2 years of
it's as dry this year as I've ever seen it in the woods. So the deer never gained any inches much. And we'll get into more of that later. We got one maybe we're going to line up with some nutrition guys to talk about what the effects of that drought does to a white-tailed deer. Does to antler sizes. But, just say that you got them. How do you keep that deer on your place? Well,
you get through deer season, through your hunting, but your neighbors still season.
Everybody's hunting.
Look,
That's right.
It's Mississippi.
It is.
You can shoot a deer up to the last day of January.
31st of January, right?
And so
in Alabama, 12th of February or something, parts of Alabama below 82?
That's right. So Mississippi, same way in February. But you want to hold that deer on your property.
Yes.
And not give him a reason to leave.
Right.
So you've done your part. So he got through you and all your guests. Nobody messed up and shot him. So now you want to hold him and play defense.
And there's one thing, you take food as a limiting factor in January.
That is.
Okay.
That's true.
Green fields can just do so much. Everybody's got a green field. Everybody's got a little corn pile.
Everybody's got a pile of.
They got a corn pile, rice bran. Corn pile, rice bran, whatever, in a feeder. But you've got to. What I try to do is intentionally feed. I run those cameras religiously. Okay. If that deer's on, let's say the creek stand, Brent. That deer's standing around the creek stand. So I'm going to intensify that feeding around that creek stand to keep him there and to keep does there.
Yeah. So you say creek stand, and I know your property, but I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll throw some drone footage over this.
Yeah.
In the YouTube in the video. But do you focus on your boundaries? Do you focus outside?
This, they're free.
That's where your deer are more vulnerable.
They are, but you're free ranging deer. Okay, so it takes one doe to get hot. He gets behind her. If he's dominant, he's gonna run off the the little sires, and he's going. Okay, where he ends up at is what you're trying to control. Mm-hmm. All right, does he make a loop on me or Dr. Reed and come back home? That's what you hope. But look,
we had one of those tag deer. Yeah. How many miles away? That deer crossed the river and was down on
13 miles.
13 miles.
13 miles.
So we know they'll travel.
They will travel.
Bronson and them had to study, where the deer were crossing the Mississippi River and
back and forth.
So we'll know that know they'll travel.
We know this deer like individual people. You got those rounders. You got those.
Got them runners.
You got them runners and them homebodies.
Yeah.
You got the ones that stay home. And live in that core property, and you got them ones that's looking hounded.
Got some rogues.
That's right. He's hopping the fences, every fence he can. Now, it blows my mind that a deer on different places, what's the difference in a doe? I mean, if you got 40 does, and what's the difference in him breeding one down the road? I guess it's like us in high school. We want to go to, I was from New Hope, you was from Caledonia. We were trying to run over there and see Caledonia women. You were trying to come over here to New Hope. I mean, it's a difference. I guess
something different.
It's wild how they'll do that. And a doe, a doe's going to be tight.
Thing you can't predict. So you talk about those characteristics of bucks, how they're a lot like. Well, does are the same way, but you can't identify them. They don't have that identifier.
Right.
So you don't know does are the same.
But the majority of does that we looked at in our study, because we did tag probably 15 or 20 does. So we did tag them. 90% of them stayed home. The 12-year-old deer that Caleb killed.
Yeah.
All right? He stayed within 500 feet of where he was tagged at.
Yeah.
So he stayed there. Okay? Most of the does are homebodies. Okay? Now, they'll push themselves out when breeding to trying to keep, the dispersal. You hear Bronson them
stand there with a bunch of.
That's right. You hear Bronson talking about dispersal. Deer being born and deer naturally disperse.
Yeah, do what you got to
do. And go to other places. Okay, they disperse. So does disperse as much as bucks? I can't answer that question, but from our study, we didn't see that. We saw most of the does stay home. The bucks would move. Okay. Now, what causes a buck to move? Lack of food, more does, cover.
Yeah.
Okay. Pressure.
Pressure will.
Pressure. I mean, there's your whole handbook right there. That's your play call.
Yeah. And as a manager, those are things you're trying to control.
You're trying to, especially late in January when deer are getting shot and deer are getting moved.
Increase food, decrease pressure.
Yeah, ain't no question. So, and here's another thing. Most people, including myself, like shoot does late in the season.
Yeah.
We have our big doe hunt. We go down there and we try to kill our quota of does the last 2 weeks of the season. So what I think, and I think habitat-wise, and I'm fixing to do some more CSP work. And we're going to do that. That podcast is coming up. So what I'm going to do is make more mini thickets. Look like a Swiss cheese. All right, everybody knows Swiss cheese is like little holes. I'm going to put holes all in my habitat. Okay, thick holes.
Yep.
I want them to be able, if that buck's run down and he don't want to be around another deer, he can go find him a spot and lay down. Okay, you see ditch banks. Me and Brandon Herkamp was talking about, deer. He had 3 or 4 nice target, good deer that were coming up, really, really nice deer. And hey, they get killed. That's just part of it. How do we prevent those deer? And I'm not trying to say prevent somebody else from killing them. I want somebody to kill them if they're old enough.
That's right.
But I'm talking about the ones that you see going from Michael Jordan to a 160, 150. Whatever's happy your target. And my target's kind of higher.
We're mostly targeting 8.
Yes.
The antlers going to be what the antlers are. We're targeting
that
5.5-year-old deer.
A guy asked me today, he said, Chris, I need to learn how to, one of my clients, I need to learn how to judge a deer on the hoof. I need to know what a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old. And I said, well, look, here's the thing. Don't look at the horns.
That's right. I'm going to tell you,
they can grow 150 inches in our region. They can grow 150 inches in 3 years.
That's right. So here's the thing I've found about aging as a novice, not a deer expert, but it is a lot harder to judge a deer, even if you know the characteristics. It's harder to judge a deer on the hoof than it is in a photo.
It is.
You run those cameras, you get to know your deer. That way you already know when he comes out. You've made the decision based on the photo and not a quick judgment call.
When I run those cameras and I see those deer that look really good. Now, you got to understand something about a camera. If he's right up on top of that camera, he looks like he's 20 inches.
Oh, that forced perspective. It's just like a gripping grin. That deer can look different. I killed a 10 up at Caledonia that by the pictures, I showed you pictures, that was a 150-inch deer all day.
Ain't no doubt. Yep.
136.
Yep.
He had long
Still
brow.
a good deer where he was at.
5.5-year-old deer.
Yeah.
Great deer. Good shot. Good kill.
But
it fooled you.
A lot of people show me a picture and say, what do you think about him? So I ask them, how far was he from the camera? Well, I don't know. Well, it takes a lot to know the difference in that. Just like you long arming that deer, short arming that deer. You know,
that's right.
I mean, when they're up on that camera, up there on that corn pile or that rice brand, and they're right on top of that camera, hell, they look that big. But when they back off, you need to look at them.
Yeah.
You don't need to shoot a deer based on the camera.
A low angle camera, a low angle, just like a photo. It changes things.
Now, getting back to what I'm,
playing defense,
playing the defensive game,
and there's several things, not just piling up more corn. You fertilize, you hit those fields.
Look, I hit 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, 250 pounds to the acre of urea, put them on the fields. Just because I'm looking, there's no acorns. We have no shoe mart or nut all still in the tree. Mm-hmm. So there's no acorns.
That's those slow dropping acorns.
But all the red oak got smashed. Alabama, Mississippi, for us around here, they're gone.
Yep. 2 years
we don't have them. Most of your white oak are already gone. They drop early, so they get ate early.
It's a crap year for white oaks, too. Everywhere I hunt, I've seen,
we had a lot of swamp chestnuts. These swamp chestnuts are gone by middle of November if you got a deer herd.
Early. Yep.
Yeah, they're all. And no swamp, which there's no sense of talking about it, but the sawtooths, they didn't make this year, which was the first year that the Hollis boys, they've had them for 30 years.
Yeah.
And they didn't have any. So food, there's the limiting factor, what we're talking about. All right, pressure. So if you're not going to kill that deer, there ain't no sense you going there screwing with the deer.
Yeah.
Okay? If you can feed them, hunt the outside edge, don't go in there where that deer he's at if you're not going to shoot him. Just because you want to go look at him.
That's right.
Because you getting in and out of that stand, you're causing a problem. Because if he's in that field with some does, and then you got to get out sooner or later. Yep. There's no sense. If you know he's there, back away from him. Leave him alone.
You don't run that doe out either.
No, leave him alone. Because you want him to be able to come back. And knock on wood, most of them that don't get killed, that don't get up walking until somebody shoots him, most of them come back home.
Yeah.
And then when they do, you need to have everything you got. Now, the budget, you was talking about budget.
Yeah. Yeah, and
some people are like, man, they ain't dealing with that.
Some people are glad it's over or it's winding down or their rut's over so they don't have to keep buying corn.
And it's according to what the seasoning. We got pretty good numbers, but, you look at knowing your herd and knowing where they're at helps you as far as defensive feeding.
Yep.
And I'm saying, most people fill their corn feeders up at Christmas time. Okay, they're going to hunt around Christmas, Thanksgiving.
Yeah, family,
them feeders are spinning. Look, they got their minds on other things now. And, don't, especially the year like this, don't turn your back on them because I can promise you they need you. Mm-hmm. Look, you've blown their population up. You got to put your part and put some back in there too.
Yeah. And here's the other thing. Like we were talking about this earlier today at the processor. You got pretty good access. There's a lot of intel you can gather from owning the processing plant.
Yeah.
And every deer that comes in there, what they eat?
They eat corn.
Eating corn.
You can look at their arm. When my boys are cleaning deer.
We talk about defense.
They had 30 deer last night, okay? 30 deer come in. And when they got through cleaning the first 10, you would think you took a 50-pound bag of corn and just dumped it in the floor.
Yeah.
That's
so your neighbor's feeding to, and that's the point I'm getting at, is if you're trying to hold a deer,
$10,
that's what you're competing with.
$10 bag of corn is undefeated if nobody else is doing it.
$10 bag of corn will outdo a $50,000 project or some short term.
You can have the best biologic, green field, whatever you want to call it. But that corn's undefeated.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, now and we're just talking about defensive now. I'm not talking about. I'm trying to
And we're not
keeping
hating
this
on it.
deer.
This is just
No, I'm trying to keep a handful of deer from getting killed. Look, next year, if they get killed, they're at the age. If my neighbors kills them, hey,
that's right.
so be it. That's good. That's a good deal. We've
You're
given
trying to
that
get
full
that deer
potential.
another birthday.
Well, I just
And
want to get the full potential. I want to see what.
right.
Look, we're not buying 10 cell phone cameras because we want to look at small bucks and does.
That's true.
I mean, really. At the end of the day,
talk. Yep.
I mean, so people say, "Oh, I ain't worried about them big." Yeah, you do. If you putting the camera out, you trying to find out what deer's there.
Yeah.
And if your deer is a 15-inch 8-point, and that's what you grow, then that's what you need to protect. Okay. If you want that 15-inch 8-point to be bigger,
We're protecting that 3 or 4 year old that you decided
right.
not to shoot, regardless of what he's got on his head.
That's right.
You're protecting the deer that you held off of this year, whatever that is. That's scalable to wherever you're hunting and whatever your goal is. If you didn't shoot him, now you're hoping somebody else does.
right?
You're protecting.
And it's just if we give them the age, some crazy things happen. One of our listeners, he was on the way over here today. He sent me a picture of a big deer, had some trash coming off of it, but it was only like a mainframe 6-point, but it had kickers and trash. And he said, "Chris, what would you do? Would you shoot him?" I said, "You're not gonna mount him, are you?" He said, "No." And he's killed several deer. He's killed several good deer this year. I said, "Why don't you let him go and let's see what he does?" I said,
How old was he?
and I think he's 4 or 5. I mean, they start throwing that crazy stuff off at 5, 6, and 7. Okay, they start throwing those kickers and tines, and they start getting out of age. They start throwing crazy stuff off. Even
like typical. A deer that's been a typical up, 3, 4.
So you take one that's got an extra beam or a split. One the deer I'm talking about, he had split brow tines, and his G2s had splits running. He had some crazy stuff going, and I could just see, because we don't have the deer as big as the Midwest. Okay, I think we'll both agree with that. Ours, we have to fight to get to 150,
Overall,
160.
we don't.
Overall,
We got
that's
some.
right.
We
got some, but not as what you're going to see in Kansas and Oklahoma and Wisconsin.
Average scores.
Average
Lot
scores.
lower.
You're just not going to do it. I mean, we can say we do kill some deer that go in the 160s, 170s, but not like they do. So these crazy deer that have these abnormal points, that's how you run those scores up, I think. I mean, you think about the more points you got, the more stuff you got going. And, you give one of them an extra year. And he told me, he said, "You know what?" He said, "I was going to shoot him, but he said, I ain't going to shoot him." Then he sends me 2 videos.
So he sent you a live trail cam. I thought you meant.
Yes, no. He sent me a live trail cam. And then after we talked about not shooting him, he sends me a video of him. He videoed him.
Yeah.
So that's a cool. I mean, the deer. But like I told him, I said, Tony, I said, "Why would you're not going to mount it?" He said, "I'm just going to cut it off and hang it on the fence." I said,
Give another year.
"Give another year. See." Then I said, "If he can get bigger, blow him down next year."
Hang him on the fence.
Yeah, hang him on the fence or make you a chandelier or something. I don't know.
I tell you what. Speaking of extra stuff and trash and all, a good friend of ours, Stephen Weathers, his daughter killed a cool deer. Emma Kay, I think it's her. Emma Kay. She killed a
Had some
deer.
crazy
Had a
stuff.
double beams on one side, and it had I think a kicker that came back in front of the deer's head.
That's
really
wild.
cool deer.
Yeah,
We'll
that's
post a
wild
picture of
stuff.
it up. But
It's you get into now the amount of feed you put. Just keep them fed.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying on defensive feed. Keep them fed.
Well,
Shut that pressure down.
We'll go a step further in case we annoyed anybody with the idea of us trying to hold a deer or keep somebody else from killing a deer. Said right up front that natural food and that browse is a limiting factor right now this January.
It's gone.
So you need to feed them anyway. They need the carb coming out of rut. They're going to need those carbs. They need that supplement. And a lot of times with our weather.
Until green up.
That's right. And our weather here, and particularly if you're hunting river bottoms, you're subject to getting a flood too.
Correct.
Some of the creek flooding and all. So
that
may
washes
be
out a lot.
displaced a little bit, and it washes out what may be there. So
Well, we want a healthy.
other good reasons to be doing it, but defense is
you want a healthy deer herd regardless. I mean, look, you're not shooting these deer and you're planting these fields and you're making this habitat better. So what you're doing, you're making your population bigger.
That's right. More miles.
More miles. So to offset more miles, you got to do two things: feed them more, shoot them more.
That's right. Look, Mitt said as good as anybody could before. He said you're balancing the resources with the number of animals you got there, and you either increase your resource or you put more time on that trigger finger.
But I'm telling you, I am specifically targeting deer that I don't want killed.
And peanuts about to
blow on off there. But I'm targeting deer that I don't want shot that have not reached their potential. Okay? Because I think we'd be safe in saying that. Not reach their potential. And if they get shot, they get shot. But in the past, Blade Runner.
That's right.
We did it with Blade Runner. You was involved in that. So we had a 155-inch deer.
155-inch
at 4. 4. Yes. And we didn't kill him, but I defensive fed him.
Yep. He was a homebody.
He was a homebody.
That makes it easier when it's a homebody.
But he was spotted. He was seen. He wasn't an aggressive deer. He stayed to himself.
Yeah.
But then he grew to 184 inches.
Yep.
You see what I'm saying?
Yep. I'll tell you what'll be interesting this year. And again, this is specific to your property, but we've talked to other people who had deer. They were excited about 4-year-olds coming in to 5-year-olds this year that didn't put on. I'll be curious to see if they make a big jump from 5 to 6. Deer that 3 and 4 had a world of potential, and we're assuming because of conditions and drought that they didn't put on much. I would love to see if they explode.
Well, it makes
given another year. It makes what that drought gave them was another year.
It did.
Decided not to shoot them. So that deer got an extra year. I wonder if they'll bounce back.
It was no sense. I mean, I was expecting 2 of those deer to go into the 160s. You was too.
Yep.
Because you saw both of them last year. They should have. Now, I have my theory on why the drought, and their theories. I mean, but it makes perfect sense if you think about. So deer are natural selectors. Okay. So when food in the spring green up, okay, that's the biggest part. Spring green up stops all your feeders. It just shuts it off. Them deer going to natural stuff.
That's right.
So when all the deer go to eating it, boom, 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 they eating the best, they eating the second best, eating the third best, eating the fourth best. Okay, they're eating what they can. All right. So if you don't have rain to bring back that first, second, and third best, then it becomes where there's an issue with the nutritional part.
Because it wasn't a dry spring.
Yes.
We got into that drought later in the year.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, and I really want to get Mariah on here, but I've listened to Mariah talk, and I'll botch this up a little bit, but the logic makes sense to me. We were talking about protein and the availability of protein, whether it's soybeans or even if it's supplemental protein out of a bag. The more you give them, it's not necessarily an additive response in what they can take and produce. There's all these other things that they need in their diet to be able to process that much protein. So even like you had beans available, you had some beans planted, the neighbor had beans, the protein was there.
But the
if
the
drought limited all these other things they needed to uptake that protein,
because if you watch a deer,
if
you watch a deer, he stands up, he's nibbling, he's biting. That's right. Everywhere he goes, he's biting.
Think about that deer, and I plugging somebody else, but Sequin, that deer Lee killed, that giant he killed. The 20 minutes, I think that deer stood still. The hunt when he shot it, it stood up out of its bed and stood there and ate privet. That deer was browsing on privet, and it's the Midwest deer, got all kind of desirable things to eat, but stood there browsing.
But they're selective. Whatever they need in their body, they're going to eat it. And if you got a big deer herd, which we do have a big deer herd on the farm, so the top quality food is getting hit first. And I'm just telling you, it's when we get Mariah, we try to get a nutrition guy.
Mariah Boggess,
we've got
he's
to
a whiz on nutrition.
But we've got to understand. Because, look, I had beans around me that I ain't had in 15 years. I planted 10 acres of beans myself that I always do, but I had 100 acres that joined me. So I was just like, man, there's no way I can fail.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
Not a protein.
Not a protein. But it told me that my natural food was not where it should be.
And that's what they got to have to maximize that available protein. I think
it makes perfect sense.
The logic, like I said, I may be wrong with the logic.
Well, it makes perfect sense because if it's just soybeans, but I do know this, they can't just eat soybeans. They'll blow it out their back end. I mean, it's too rich for them to eat all the time. But it's going to be interesting to see the age. And look, we'll be able to, not out of a textbook, we'll be able to look at individual deer and say, you know what? He maxed out at 5. He maxed out at 6.
Yep.
Or he's gotten bigger 5 to 6. I want to see 5 to 6.
I want to see these deer, these 10s bounce back from.
And I had a guy tell me that's a really sharp guy in the Midwest, and he told me that them droughts, when they get them, that those older deer, it's rougher on them.
Yeah.
And he's got a place in Texas that they do. And he said when they, Texas goat fights droughts.
That's right.
He said what he's noticed on their lease in Texas, that when those droughts, those older deer that were 170, he said start going 140, 150, and he said they never rebound. I hope I'm wrong. I hope he's wrong.
Yeah. Well, I hope.
But look, this is why we're learning.
Like, these deer weren't old when the drought impacted them.
That's right.
So they were, that deer in their prime.
Right.
That maybe they'll bounce back.
And I mean, you can look at them. You can look at their body weights. Look, Brent, I keep up with body weights. That's a big thing on me. I love for my deer to be 230, 240, 250. We didn't have a deer killed this year. Both the ones Marty Kate killed were 215,
Yeah.
220.
5-year-old.
5-year-old.
5-year-old. That's typically.
And I killed a 5-year-old. He weighed 225. But any other time, that deer weighed 250.
Yep.
I'm telling you, they were 20 to 30, 40 pounds lighter this year, and had all those soybeans. So I don't know. We'll
talking about 10, 15%.
Yes, they were down.
Body weight, that's down.
And
I like to drop 10%.
You don't look at stuff being, well, they don't. It's drought. They ain't got enough drinking water. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the quality of the forage.
That's right.
It's just like a old burn up, your yard.
Yep. And so you do have
thing.
that is a thing, and there's stress, and there's all these things, but we're talking about strictly the nutrition.
Well, everything, it's a funny ecosystem. The plant stressed, the animal eating it stressed. It's just not doing it what it needs to be. So
we fix to get put to work.
We are.
We're gonna wrap that up. But it's an interesting thing, and I know you're not the only ones doing it. That you get through the peak of hunting season and start playing defense, start trying to hold that deer.
And I think most people that listen to our podcast, they'll agree. Yeah. They're holding them back. But why not shoot if you're afraid somebody else is going to blow him down?
Well, look, and the South is unique, sort of. Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, we got long liberal seasons.
We do got long seasons.
You look at some places.
Midwest got 10 days.
Yeah, 10 days. That's all you got to worry about. Mm-hmm. He survives that.
If you can get him past him, catch them orange vest on, walking them cowboy boots, you got
him. Man drives.
Yeah.
So here, look, we've been hunting since October 1st. You don't bow hunt, but so it's been season. Since October 1st, it's January the 4th. Yeah. And we still got 20 days to worry about, 25 days to worry about that deer.
Where they're going.
Yep.
Yeah. Well,
we'll update them. How about that?
We'll let you know.
Keep y'all posted.
That's right.
But look, we appreciate you as always. We'll wrap this one up and we'll be back. We got some. We're still in deer mode, and habitat mode, and we're watching. Look, the other good thing about when you're feeding like you are, trying to play defense, you never know what may show up.
You're right.
If your neighbor ain't playing good defense, you may have a.
We'll be able to see if everybody's sharing them pictures.
That's right.
We appreciate you.
We'll catch y'all on the next one.
Thank you.